Welcome everyone to getting started in NASCAR Heat 5. That's right, the day has finally arrived. First and foremost, thank you so much to 704 Games as well as Motorsport Games for allowing me to have early access to NASCAR Heat 5 so that I can start making content like this for you guys. So in today's video, we are literally on the very first startup of the game. The game just got done installing, so this is my welcome screen, and in today's video we're going to do exactly what the title mentions. We're going to get started and hopefully get our controller set up, which for me is a Logitech G920 wheel and pedal set, and hopefully take a look at some of the basic options within the game. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the A button to continue. Now, I will be playing this game on the PC, but it is also available through both PlayStation and Xbox as well. So we're going to swap over to the wheel. Click on A to continue on. And the wheel setup. First things first, we need degrees of rotation. For the Logitech G920, it is 900 degrees. And I would imagine for most every wheel, it should default to the proper number. But should it not default to the proper number, or if you decide that you would rather play with your wheel set at a different degrees of rotation than your default or the maximum for your wheel, then you'll have an opportunity to change it here. I'm going to leave it at 900. Go ahead and accept and move forward. Now we need to choose our driving experience. So this is your level of comfort with racing games. So if we move over to casual and we take a look at the description right below the experience, it says a more relaxed experience with easier AI, more driving aids, and shorter races. So it's a great choice for all skill levels. So if you're someone who is just getting started in racing games, or if you prefer a very casual experience, so you're not looking for difficulty, you're just looking to get out there, run some laps, and have some fun, then maybe this is going to be for you. The driving aids in particular are going to allow you to have an easier time controlling the car. No more sliding around as much. The computer is actually going to help you drive the car. And then the difficulty becomes higher and higher as we move our way toward the right-hand side and expert level, which is where I'll be spending my time. Expert level says that we're going to dive in and tune your driving experience to your own specifications. The most flexible choice for the technical driver, basically meaning we can choose how difficult the AI are. We can also choose whether or not we're going to use driving aids. So a lot more choices here if you're someone who's very experienced with driving games. So I'm going to go ahead and click on A, and we'll continue on. Next up will be the gameplay and driving options. Now, for those of you who are familiar with the series, maybe you've played NASCAR Heat 4, NASCAR Heat 3, and prior, then these will start to look very familiar, as there's a lot of similarity here with what we saw last year in NASCAR Heat 4. Also, I will make note that you're not going to hear any game sounds right now, and that is simply because by default the game includes music, and to avoid any YouTube copyright issues, I have cut the sound from the game temporarily until I can get that option turned off. Remember, this is the first time I'm starting up the game as well, so there's a lot of options I'm going to need to set up. Starting on the gameplay tab, transmission, I'm going to be using the manual transmission. Pay attention on the right-hand side of the screen as I go through each of these options. It's going to give you a little bit more description about what each one entails. For me, I'm simply going to set up my personal preferences here. Manual transmission, my Logitech G920 uses the paddle shifters, so that will be perfectly fine for me. Brake smoothing, I'm going to turn this off, but you have low and high as well. Again, just depending on how much control you want over the car versus how much you want the game to help you out. Car identifiers, there's a lot of possibilities here. Position and name, this is what's going to appear on the track during a race above the car. So how much information do you want to know about the competitors that you're racing against? We can go position name and status, and then we can go back to where I'm going to leave this, which is off. Then we get to a new option here in NASCAR Heat 5, which is the cockpit wheel. Do you want to hide that? Now, in previous games, the cockpit wheel showed up in game, but now we have the option to turn that off. I'm actually going to switch this to on. Since I'm using a wheel and pedal set, I don't really need to have the wheel show on screen. In fact, if anything, it can actually throw you off a little bit if you're using a wheel, because it doesn't always track one-to-one with how much I'm turning my wheel in real life. Disable rivals in career. Now, I've never had an issue with this, but apparently a lot of people have had issues where the rivals get too intense in career mode and they actually start to purposefully wreck you and make it very hard to enjoy a race. So I'm not going to disable them, so I'm going to leave this in the off position, and hopefully I won't have any need to come back and change that. AI difficulty. Here's where the fun starts to begin for me, because I want as much challenge as I can get from the AI. In fact, in a perfect world, I would have a setting that would allow me to set the AI so difficult that I cannot beat them. But that's just my personal preference. So here we start off at custom with a difficulty of 100. Now, 105 is customarily the maximum difficulty for the AI when using the custom setting, but we also have auto, we have auto hard, or if we go back to the far left, we have auto on easy. So I'm going to leave that on custom and level 105. Damage, we can have full damage, light, or no damage. I'm going to leave that at full damage. And then we have race length. You can go all the way down to a 2% race, and of course you can go all the way up to a 100% race. I'm going to leave it at, we'll say 25% for right now. Then let's scroll down a little bit just so we can see some additional options. Tire wear and fuel consumption. I know a lot of people like to use 4X, which will speed up things 4 times, which means that a fuel stint will last 1/4 of the normal time it would in real life. And then the same thing with 3X, 2X, and then back to the normal. So for right now, I'm going to put this on 4X. Then we get to the tire wear rate. So the tire wear rate and the grip fall off, these really work together. You have less wear, normal, and more wear. And then on the grip fall off side of things, you have more grip, normal, and less grip. So if we go back to normal on each one, the tire wear rate is how fast the tires wear. So how quickly those percentages of tire remaining while you're in the race will reduce. Obviously, the more wear, the quicker the tires will wear out, and the more likely you or the AI are to have a tire explode and go flat during the race. So for right now, we're going to leave this at normal. The grip fall off. How much grip do you have as the tires start to wear? You can allow them to have more grip, which would simulate a track where you don't really lose a lot of grip over time, such as the super speedways, Daytona, Talladega, and certain other tracks where they use a harder tire, and you don't really lose a whole lot of grip over a full fuel run. Then you have on the other extreme less grip. This would be something like Atlanta, a place where the lap times fall off greatly. The speeds are greatly reduced over the course of a fuel run. For our purposes right now, we'll leave both of these on normal. Then we come down to flags. Now, I prefer leaving it on no flags, but you can go black flags only, all with a relaxed yellow, simply meaning you're going to have more cars involved or a more serious accident before the yellow flag comes out. Or you can go strict yellows. As I mentioned, I'm going to leave this on no flags right now. Then you come to stage racing. For those of you who are not a big fan of stage racing, this is where you can leave it at single race stage. So regardless of the length of race you're running, you can run 100% races the old school way, where there was only one stage. Or you can do the multiple race stages, as has become a custom over the last few years. Then we come to race qualifying. And again, this is an option to either use the more traditional single car qualifying, only one car on the track at a time, or you can use a session qualifying, which has everybody on the track at the same time, and you get your qualifying stats that way. I'll go with quick qualifying, and I'm going to leave it on the stage racing for now. Then we get into championship mode qualifying setting. Again, same as what we just looked at for quick race, so we'll skip by that. Same thing with the career mode, and that takes care of the gameplay tab. Now we'll move over to the driving tab. Under the driving aid section here, you notice that the preset is set to expert level, which of course is what we selected on a previous screen. But for our purposes in today's video, we're going to move this back to the hard difficulty just so you can have an opportunity to see the different levels of the driving assist. So the easier we make the difficulty, the larger number under each of these driving assists, which simply means that the game is going to help you out in controlling the car. So this is a great opportunity to try some of these out and see exactly which one of these presets works for you, whether you're using a steering wheel as I am, or if you're on an Xbox or a PlayStation controller. So if we come back to the expert level and then go one selection passed, we get to the custom screen, which is where we can customize and select each of these to our preferred level. For my purposes, I'm going to leave this on expert since I'm not interested in any of the driving aids. Now we come down to the drafting effect. So on the super speedways, generally we get quite a bit of drafting effect. The cars will be able to suck up to each other very quickly as the draft effect, particularly with the current aero package is very strong. But there is a separation here. What about the other tracks? Maybe you prefer the super speedways to be really strong with the drafting, but at some of the other speedways and bigger tracks, you prefer it to be a little bit more tame. Well, here's your opportunity to do just that. For my purposes, I'm going to leave this on high on each of those, and we'll move on to the AI settings. First up is the skill range. So this is how wide of a skill range do you want for the AI. If we put this on narrow, that means that from first all the way down to 40th is going to be a very narrow range there, meaning they're all going to be close to the same speed. That's going to mean tougher competition, a lot more side-by-side racing, a lot more contact in all likelihood among AI drivers as well as with you as the player. And then if we put this on wide skill range, this is going to have things spread out much more. The difference between the fastest AI car and the slowest AI car is going to be much wider. For right now, I'm simply going to leave that on normal. Then we come to stability. How stable are the AI cars? In other words, how often do you want them to wreck whenever there's that inevitable contact? So if you make them less stable, this is going to make them more susceptible to spinning out, hitting in the wall, and so on from this contact. Or you can make them more stable where it is going to be very hard for them to spin out or have any sort of wreck that would bring out a caution. Then recovery skill, similar type thing here. If you have less skill, then it's going to be harder for them to recover if you get them out of shape with contact, and then more skill if they have a lot of ability to correct once contact has been made. Again, for right now, I'll simply leave this on normal. The starting spread, similar to the skill range that we were looking at. Here on the starting spread, this is where at the very start of the race or on restarts, how bunched up are the cars. So compress would mean that everybody is clumped up very close together, increasing the likelihood of contact at a start or restart, and then expanding, giving you a little bit more room if you're having issues with a lot of cautions and a lot of contact, particularly if you're using full damage in the game. So for me, I prefer the expanded just to give a little bit more room and have a little bit less contact during some of the odd behaviors that you may see from the AI. Mechanical failures. These will happen throughout the game, and sometimes during the course of a race, it can be realistic to have some of those. Sometimes they will blow tires, they will blow an engine and have to retire from the race. So how frequently do you want to see that happen with the AI car? Remember, this is only with the AI car. This does not affect you as the player. So very infrequently, or do you want to happen frequently? I'm going to leave that on infrequent. Here, then now we come to the tire wear effect. So on the gameplay tab, we looked at how the tire wear would affect us, not only the rate of tire wear, but also the amount of grip that's lost as the tire wear. Well, now we're looking at the same thing, but for the AI. So we can have tire wear take more effect on the AI, or we can have it take less effect. Again, for right now, I'm just going to have it match what I've chosen, which is the normal. Then we come to fuel consumption. This gives you an opportunity to adjust when the AI pit. I remember from NASCAR Heat 4 that there were some tracks where the AI would pit 2 to 3 laps sooner than me, even on 4X, and that could either be from tires or it could be fuel. So sometimes just by adjusting that fuel consumption to have them use a little bit less fuel, it'll have them go a little bit longer on a fuel run before they pit. So you can go shorter or faster amounts of fuel consumption there, or I'm just going to leave it on normal. Impact forces. So this is how much any contact with the AI is going to affect your stability. So we can have low impact where it doesn't really matter a whole lot, much more forgiving interactions as you see on the right hand side of the screen, or we can go very high impact forces, which makes it much more difficult to recover from that. So if you want to increase the difficulty with the AI when racing the AI and have to be much more careful in racing them, then turn that impact force up to high. For right now, I'm simply going to leave it on normal. Then we come to draft partners. Now, this is an easy way to make the racing much more exciting if that's something that you're looking for. So with draft partners enabled, then on the bigger tracks, whether we're talking Daytona or Talladega, what used to be called the restrictor plate tracks, now we don't really use the restrictor plates, at least not right now, at those tracks, or some of the bigger tracks, the bigger speedways such as Atlanta or Michigan and so on, you'll have a car that is either immediately in front of you or behind you that will draft with you, and it can help both of you pick up speed. So you have the option to enable this, which can really help you gain a lot of speed and positions in a short amount of time if you get to work together with one of the AI cars, or you can disable this and the AI will simply race you as normal. For right now, I'm going to enable this, and you can see we're back to the top. So that's going to take care of both the gameplay and driving options. Now let's move on forward. Next up is an opportunity to choose our victory anthem. For those of you who love to race online, this is the song that will play whenever you win a race, and all of your competitors will be able to hear this. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I have the sound off in the game, so we won't be able to actually hear any of the songs, but you can see we've got several options here available, not only rock music, but then you go into country and so on. For now, I'm simply going to leave this at none, press on continue, and we're ready to move on to the main menu screen. So there's still a lot to do within the game, but here within the main menu, you see we have the option to start our career. We can start racing. We can hop on to multiplayer, customize our driver, customize our car, and then finally we can go into some other race modes. The main menu has been revamped for NASCAR Heat 5. Starting on the left-hand side of the screen, Start My Career, giving you the opportunity to start a brand new career, either starting from the bottom in the dirt late models and then working your way up through trucks, Xfinity, and finally in the Cup level, or you can jump straight into any one of those series and begin your career in NASCAR. Then we move on to the Race Now option, which in the past has been known as Quick Race, where we can select any one of the 4 series currently in the game, along with any one of the supported tracks for that series, and we can move directly into a single race event. In fact, you can see in the top of the screen, it's still known as a quick race. Then we move on to the race modes selection. So in addition to the quick race and career path, you also have the brand new test session. Now, for those of you who are like me and would prefer to be able to test a car and track combination to work on your line, work on setups, and so on without having the interference of the AI, then test session is absolutely a wonderful addition, something I've been waiting quite a while to be added to the game, and now it's here. We also have the championship mode, which unlike the career mode, you can jump straight into any series and any combination of tracks and search for that elusive championship. In the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, you see the challenge mode. Right now, there are currently 20 challenges within the game, and I'm sure more will be added along the way in future DLCs. And then finally, in the bottom right is the split screen mode for those of you who want to play multiplayer on one system. So the next thing I was going to look at in today's video was the wheel setup. But unfortunately, you notice at the bottom of the screen, the options tab. Well, that is an Xbox control rather than a PC control, and while I can push that option on my wheel, the Logitech G920, which has that particular option, it's not currently working on the PC, so we'll have to save that for another video. So that's our very first look at getting started in NASCAR Heat 5. As always, if you have any questions, drop them in the comment section below, and I'll do my very best to answer them along the way. Thank you so much for joining me, and stay tuned as we are just getting started with our coverage of NASCAR Heat 5.